of the recorded lecture. So, welcome. So, just in case you would like to catch up with the lectures, these are our goals and objectives. We would like to familiarize the students on various language theories in the field of linguistic studies. We would like also to reinforce good practices in classroom teaching and interrogate the limitations of these propositions. So, to start with, please take a look at this picture analysis and synthesis. What do you have in mind? What do you think about figure 2? What about figure 3? What about figure 4? What's our takeaway? Well, it's best to use our tongue to build cooperation, to build unity, and, to limit the use of our tongue for abusive speech and for discouraging another. But instead, by being kind, by engaging with more, mildness, respect, and kindness, these values helps us to communicate better. These values helps us to, talk with more respect to others that will result to better relationships. So, since this is the part one of the lecture, I would like to start with who made language. This question starts with who made language? Was it invented? Was it created? Or how did it occur? How did it came to us? How did it become complex? Well, in the Bible, we can start with creation, the narrative of design. So it says that God created everything and came into existence. Is that true? Well, basically, there is an evidence in the universe, and that is actually evidence for this picture that some forces in nature or even the stars have a beginning. And this is what we call the pillars of creation. The photo is courtesy of NASA. So, what does this pillars of creation say? That something like a star or galaxy has a beginning. These are actually gases and thus being formed to make a star. So, if the universe has a beginning, thus the humans have a beginning as well. Or are we designed or are we created? So, that is actually a proposition as presented by people who believe in design. This is what we call intelligent design theory. Okay, so it's good to have this belief. So, according to intelligent design theory, nature and forces of nature that sustain life, like we in Earth and everything that sustains life on this Earth, are all product of design. Who designed them? We don't know. Is it God who designed them? That is actually the problem of religion. But why do we have to start this way? Why do we have to problematize the beginning? Well, basically because everything that we know, everything that we believe, everything that make life, get sustained on Earth are all product of, somehow evolution says product of randomness. But others would say no. We were created, we were designed to live on Earth, and that everything that we need to sustain life are here on Earth. So that kind of reason just lead to the belief in intelligent design. So I want you to focus on these questions. Did all these forces occur by chance, random and uncoordinated, or all of them are designed? So if we look at physics and if we look at mathematics or math equations, we get to see that all forces of nature were accurate, were designed, and were just right. So, meaning to say, they didn't occur randomly and they did not occur by chance, but they were designed. Okay, so creation and the biblical narrative starts with God created everything and it came to existence. And that might include, of course, language because it's our capacity to communicate, it's our capacity to express ourselves. So when we are created as beings, is everything that we know, is everything that we are capable to do also created by God? Was it invented? Was it created just there when God created us? These are all epistemological questions. When we say epistemological questions, these are philosophical questions that try to interrogate the origins of nature or the origins of our being. Okay, so what's our takeaway here? I'm sorry, it's getting back here. So in the beginning, we have what we call the invention of language according to biblical tradition. In the Bible or in the biblical narrative, it says that a man named Nimrod tried to have an ambitious project, and that is to build a tower that would reach earth, that would reach the sky. So, did he succeed in his attempt to build the tower? Well, they started to build the tower, and when they were about to reach their goal, God intervened, and what he did was he distracted their project, and he put, okay, the word is put, and he put different languages onto the mind or onto the tongue of every person. So he distracted their project by distracting their language. So we can surmise that before there is only one language, and that with one language everyone could understand each other. They had unity. But now, since God intervened in this particular scenario and their project was eliminated, the people who could speak the same language went together and spread all throughout the earth. That is actually the Tower of Babel and God's dissolution of one universal language. Okay, so what comes next? Well, that biblical narrative might be connected with mobility, migration, and classification of language families. So we have more than 7,000 languages in the world, and each of these languages can be grouped or classified into language families. What are these? So the arrows that you see here on the map are not actually perfect or not certain, but actually they are language groupings. The language grouping on this side are called Altaic languages or language family that belongs to East Asia. And we also have Austronesian languages, the families that belong to the South. Austro is actually a Latin word that means south. Austronesian languages, which include the 120 plus languages being spoken in the Philippines. Well, the Philippines is one of the most linguistically diverse countries, and it's also Indonesia. Indonesia has more than 700 languages. So I think the diversity of language landscapes in this part of the earth is really vast and great. And also, there are Aboriginal tribes and languages here in Australia. And we also have, Germanic languages here. And English is also a Germanic language. English came from Germanic group of languages or language family. We also have it here, and we also have the African languages and all the other. Okay, so what does science say? Well, science says that since we don't have, an evidence or a fossil that would suffice our, definite answer for these questions, it just says that with evolution, it started with the primates, and that when the primates' head grew bigger, just like this picture shows, they were able to, in a way, accommodate the acquisition and learning of language. Why? Because as their head grow, their brain size grew as well. Okay, as their head grow, they evolve. Their brain size was able to accommodate more complex functions. And this is actually through the shape of hominid vocal tracts. So when a particular hominid like this image number one has smaller vocal tracts, then probably they could not produce meaningful sounds and phonations. But when they were become more advanced or they have evolved, their vocal tracts most likely is also able to accommodate the complex language functions. Okay, so this is actually the skull of a Homo sapien or a modern man. So you get to see that it is bigger and the brain size has also been bigger. Well, I wanted you to look at this picture. Is evolution true? Is mutation true? And is adaptation true? The basic assumption is that when something is not used, it could be lost over time. When something is not used, it could be lost over time. This fossil is actually a fossil of a snake. This shows that a time ago, snakes have feet. And this is actually this picture. So they lost their feet because it's not being used. it's no longer serve a function. So our physiological characteristics adapt with various environmental factors and of their usage functions over time. So since our head or skull grew bigger, so it was able to accommodate complex language functions in the latter part of evolution. Okay, so since it's very important that we have to take a look at the vocal tract as the location of language function, because this is where phonation, this is where the vibration occurs. Vibration is actually happens in the vocal tract. Yeah. So pharynx, esophagus, trachea, vocal cord, epiglottis, supraglottis, glottis, and subglottis. These are all part of the larynx. It happens here. Our diaphragm pushes air, and then vibration occurs in this part. And the articulators, the tongue, the mouth, the lips, and the teeth, are actually being used to produce these sounds. So if there's no vibration or sound production over here, we were unable to hear the words and the sounds over from our mouth. So we have to take a look at the evolution of language and speech through the evolution of the larynx. This is the anterior view of the larynx. This is the posterior view and cross section. Okay, you get to see here the vocal folds and the vocal tracts. We will not focus on this because this is not speech. We just want to emphasize that in evolution, our body, our physiological body, was able to adapt with complexness of our physiological makeup that was able to accommodate language functions. Okay, so in humans, the particular thing that we need to do is focus on phonation. That is meant by air, and how these phonation occur through the larynx. Okay, here, without those body parts, we're unable to produce sounds. So here, we get to see the word person's voice. That's how simple it is. Okay, also we have vocalizations. Why do we have different voices anyway? Why do each person have different a variety in speech if we only have one design of larynx? Why do we have different type of voices and different types of sound? Of course, my voice is different from yours, and others have sweeter voices, others have more lower range voices. Well, we only have one design of larynx and one design of vocal tracts, but how these are used depends on a particular person's way of using this part of the body. So that's how it goes. The amount of air that's being pushed and being vibrated in the vocal tract makes the variety of the voices that we have, or the acoustic signals that happen there. Okay, so if we assume that such fossil evidence indicates that complex language functions like phonation occur through syntax, then might probably this is at least the one of the nearest evidence that we could say that evolution have a role in language production. Okay, so during this stage, the upper Paleolithic humans stage, people started to use or develop more complex functions of language. And what you can see here is the survival of every person, human against nature and human against animal. And this is the part of our history when humans start to, make tools or use tools such as this spear. They use this spear for survival or to fight back animals for hunting or anything else. So during this stage, complex language development had been invented, and these had been attested by the paintings or the drawings in caves in Spain or in other parts of the globe. Okay, so if you'd like to dig deeper into this particular subject, here is our suggested reading. Please have time or find time to read these sources or references. If you have any questions, of course, you can always PM me and we can always clarify and make all of this simpler in our live sessions. Let's catch up next time. Bye.